All right, today we're going to dig into the heart of pretty much every corporate network out there, Active Directory. Specifically, we're looking at the huge, and I mean critical upgrades that are coming with Windows Server 2025.
So what is in the blueprint for the future of your network? Well, to really get a handle on this, I want you to think about Active Directory in a new way. It's not just some list of users, right? It's the digital blueprint for your entire organization's network. It lays out who gets access to what, where everything is, and how it all fits together. And with Server 2025, that blueprint, it's getting a major overhaul.
Okay, so let's break down that blueprint. Every good blueprint has its core components, You've got your buildings, your rooms, the people inside. In the world of Active Directory, these are called objects, and they are, quite literally, the fundamental building blocks of your entire digital world.
First up, you've got the most obvious one, user accounts. On our blueprint, these are the people. Simple as that. Each user object is a digital stand-in for a real person who needs to log in. It holds all their permissions, all their info. Think of it like their personal digital keycard to get into the building and access the right room.
Then, of course, you have computer accounts. If the users are the people walking around, the computers are the actual rooms and offices they work in. Every single workstation or server that's hooked up to the domain gets its own object. And that's what lets the IT admins manage and lock down that machine from one central spot.
And it doesn't stop there. There are a few other really key parts to this blueprint. You've got groups, right? Which is kind of like giving a master key to an entire department instead of handing out individual keys. Super efficient. Then you have organizational units, OUs for short. Think of these as entire wings of the building, a way to keep everything organized and delegate who's in charge of what. And of course, you have objects for things like printers and shared folders. It all seems pretty straightforward, right? But this foundation is exactly where the Server 2025 upgrades start to get really interesting.
Because, let's be real, a blueprint is totally useless if someone can just walk in and mess with it. So a huge part of this new upgrade is all about security. We're talking about hardening this digital blueprint against the kinds of modern threats that, frankly, keep IT admins up at night.
So here's a big one. There's this really nasty type of attack called Kerber roasting. For a long time, attackers could go after these things called service accounts to basically steal and crack passwords. It was a huge vulnerability. The new solution? It's called Delegated Managed Service Accounts, or DMSAs. What this does is, it essentially throws out that old vulnerable master key and replaces it with a super special key that's digitally chained to a specific machine's identity. It just makes it so much harder to exploit.
But they didn't stop there. Nope. Server 2025 is just layering on the security. It now has built-in support for LAPS, which is this fantastic tool for managing local administrator passwords. That used to be a massive security hole on networks. It also adds something called confidential attributes. Basically, this forces encryption whenever someone tries to access super sensitive data. Think social security numbers or salary info. It's exactly like putting those specific files in a digital safe that can only be opened with a special encrypted key.
Okay, so our blueprint is way more secure. That's awesome. But what about performance? Well, Server 2025 also completely revamps the engine behind Active Directory, making it bigger, faster, and a whole lot stronger to keep up with today's crazy demands.
And that brings us to this number, 32K. Now, just looking at it, it might not seem like much, but trust me, this little number represents a massive, fundamental shift in the very architecture of the Active Directory database.
So what's the deal with 32K? It's the new database page size. The old one was just 8K, so we're talking a four-fold increase. That huge leap means the database can now handle much larger objects, and you can cram way more attributes onto each one. This is absolutely essential for the complex IT environments we're all dealing with now. The bottom line? Everything just runs better. It's more efficient, more capable.
All right, security is better, performance is up, that's all fantastic. But what about the poor admins who have to manage this thing day in and day out? Well, good news. Server 2025 also brings some seriously needed quality of life upgrades for the people who live and breathe Active Directory.
Look, if you've ever had to deal with a corrupted AD object or a replication nightmare, and oh my gosh, who hasn't? This is going to be huge for you. The new version gives admins way more powerful tools to actually repair objects, and it gives them much finer control over how data gets copied between domain controllers. It's all about making the whole system tougher and, thank goodness, easier to maintain.
But here's the catch, and it's an important one. You don't get all this cool new stuff right out of the box. Nope. To get access to these features, administrators have to deliberately unlock them. They do this by raising what are called the domain and forest function levels all the way up to the new version 10. It's a very intentional process, and it's designed that way to make sure an organization is absolutely ready before they flip the switch on all these powerful new tools.
So, okay, let's take a step back and pull this all together. Let's look at the big picture here. We've seen major security upgrades, huge performance boosts, and smarter management tools. So what does this all actually mean for your organization?
You know, this quote really nails it. The sum of all these changes means that Active Directory in Windows Server 2025 is, well, it's faster, it's way more secure, and, this is the critical part, it's much better suited for the hybrid cloud world we all live in now. You know, where your on-premise stuff has to talk seamlessly with all your cloud services.
And that really leaves us with a final, pretty interesting thought to chew on. In a world where everyone is rushing to the cloud, Microsoft is pouring a ton of resources into making the on-premise foundation, Active Directory, stronger than it has ever been. So the big question you have to ask is, how does strengthening your core foundation, right here, on the ground, change your entire strategy for building out into the cloud? It's a really crucial question for any organization planning its next move.